There are 151 entries within the Pokédex of Pokemon Yellow, and it is my current challenge and goal to beat the game every single week in a solo challenge using every single one of those 151 Pokemon. Now, today we are taking a look at the Pokemon Diglett, better known for the little rhyming tune that they sang within the cartoon of Diglett Dig, Diglett Dig, and then Trio, in the background from the Doug Trios. But we're not talking about Doug Trio today. We are talking about Diglett, the first person to talk in that little rhyming scheme or little song or whatever it is that they're doing there. Diglett is, I think, a pretty fun Pokemon because, first of all, just look at him. What the heck is this guy, right? What is he supposed to be? Like, what is truly, it is a thumb, it is a hot dog, it is a mole of some sort. It is the weirdest little nothing you could ever imagine. And yet, it is quite cute. It's just a little thumb sticking out of the ground with a nose. They cannot jump up out of the ground. They can only go underneath it. We don't know what's down there beneath the depths of the ground. Beneath the soil, what does Diglett hold? What does Diglett contain? What are his secrets? And why won't he share them with the world? It's a little haunting, really, when you think about it. But what's not haunting is this run. That's going to be kind of a loaded sentence, I think, a little bit. But I think after everything that we've sort of witnessed recently, Diglett feels like it's going to be one of the typical sort of pre-evolution Pokemon that, yeah, it's going to have some of the challenges and it's going to be a little difficult to sort of get a good time with. And if nothing else, that is because of the fact that it's not going to have anything useful for the first gym until level 19. That's pretty frustrating, to say the least. And as you can also see here in the background footage of the intro here, Diglett really struggles to get experience in the very early game. It has really no defense. That is the biggest thing we have going against us today. And we are going to have to keep a pretty good eye on that if we want to make it through a lot of the gyms that are going to be problematic, really for most Pokemon, but especially today for Diglett. I'm thinking specifically of Erica could be an issue. Two of her Pokemon are also part poison, so Dig could help us out, but Tangela could be a real issue. And then, of course, you have Misty, where nothing that we have is going to be very effective against her. And their defense isn't that bad. So, we really are going to have an issue with Misty once we get there. So we're going to have to make sure that we are leveled up pretty significantly, which is one of those things where we could maybe make it through Brock without getting to level 19 and learning Dig. But I don't know, like, honestly, for me today, when you look at this video, there's going to be a pretty large time jump because I am going to spend the time to just grind it out and get to level 19. It's going to take us some time. And maybe in a future run, I won't try to go to level 19. Maybe I won't spend as much time in the beginning because it does kind of add on to the later time, right? But the thing is that once we have that move, it's going to set us up pretty well for really a lot of the run, actually, to have a pretty good head start, B, have Dig on the team's learn set already. The team, it's one Pokemon, but we'll already have Dig. We won't even need to get a TM in order to learn that move. He just knows it. It's in his name. That makes sense. It's kind of his namesake, I would argue. And then after that, when you look at the rest of the moves, there's kind of not a lot that we can really pick from. We obviously start off with Scratch and Growl. Neither of those are going to stick with us. Sand Attack, not really that helpful in my opinion. Earthquake, obviously another great move, but it does the same amount of damage as Dig, and it does not then let you kind of miss a turn of damage from someone else. So kind of hit or miss on whether or not I'm really going to use that a lot, at least in this generation. Toxic, I never use that. Takedown, Double Edge are two pretty heavy hitting moves, but I don't think we're going to need it. Body Slam obviously is something that we can learn. We'll probably use that for a while, but Rage is not a good move either. We're not going to need Mimic. Diglett definitely does not need it. Double Team is against my rule set. And then Bide, awful move. Rest because how weak our defense is, we really don't want to try and risk using rest, because by the time I use it and get out of the sleep, I think I'm going to be back into a pretty hurt status. So, we got to skip that. Rock Slide is going to be very good for some of the later stuff that's happening, specifically Lorelei and Lance's team. Anything that has either a flying type or an ice type, the Rock Slide move is going to get us through pretty nicely. And then Substitute, not really worth trying to get through all that trouble to get it. Again, it also gets rid of a lot of our health, so we don't really want it. Cut is an HM, it doesn't do a lot, so as you can see, we're mostly looking at Slash, Dig, Rock Slide. Those are the three big hitters in today's episode. And also, they're going to be so crucial because Slash is a move that I typically avoid because I'm trying to use a setup move to change my attack, and I don't want the critical hit to sort of ignore all of that, because this doesn't work the same way as future generations do. But because we don't have any setup moves, Slash will actually be quite good because of the fact that it will crit pretty frequently, and that'll be good for us. So we'll definitely see that move used a lot today as well. But with that all being said, I think that kind of lays out a pretty good case for Diglett for a pre-evolution Pokemon. I really enjoyed this run. Ground Pokemon have a lot of benefits to them in this generation, but there are sections in the game that are very clearly designed to not be very good for them. So, we're going to see a little bit of, I would say, a much more balanced run than we did with the Venonat run or with any of the other Pokemon that have some major struggles like the birds, or honestly, a lot of the fire Pokemon. I think that while there are struggles, they're not as bad for Diglett today. So let's go ahead and cut over. Now that we have done a lot of training, let's cut over to the first gym battle right here. We, of course, went up against the junior trainer here and got us to level 19 so that we could do this. And we're done. I know it took us a long time to get to this point, but it's a good move at the end of the day. And speaking of taking too long, I did take too long at Mount Moon. I do think that we're running 5 or 10 minutes longer than we really should be at this point for Diglett. I think we could probably do a lot of this stuff at slightly lower levels, slightly less time wasted, yada, yada, yada. But either way, we make it through Mount Moon, and we are obviously here on Rival 2's team. And I will say that at the very least, the benefit that we have here by this overleveling and all that other stuff does make that team considerably easier. So far, this has been a better experience, right? Because we lost that first fight. The second one, it was kind of tight. And then this one, much easier. Now, because we defeated him, we could do all of the Nugget Bridge and everything like that. And once we're done talking to Bill, we make our way back down to Cerulean City's gym. I do have to heal up after that first fight. I'm kind of low on potions right now, although I actually could afford to buy more. I'm just being frugal for some weird reason. Don't know why. Anyway, so we defeat the first person. Now we're going to go up against this Goldeen, who could actually be pretty devastating, but because of Dig, it didn't really matter. So then I can go talk to Misty, and we are good to go. It's a little scary because obviously they are super effective against me, but I am outspeeding, and that is a crucial part of this. And the critical hit, I truly thought it was going to be at least one extra attempt, and it was not. And so because of that, we have already moved on to SSN with no resets. We are still close to an hour though, so the time could be better, but I'm feeling pretty confident in this run so far. As always, I am showing you that we are stopping by the Body Slam room. It's always my very first stop here at SSN. Or I guess it's always my first step if it's, a move that I can learn. Otherwise, I just sort of skip over it. Or if you're Venonat and you still go because you need every little bit of experience you can get. But Diglett has made his way through everyone. I didn't fight every trainer here, but I did fight quite a few of them. As you can see, it's added a little bit of time to the clock, but that's okay. We're running a little low, but I think that we can start to speed up near the end. That's the good thing. So we've defeated the rival. We got to see the SS Anne off on its merry journey. I just really like this area and that scene. And then we can move on to Lieutenant Surge with Diglett at level 33. Okay, and moving on to Erica's gym in Celadon City, we can make our way through a lot of the people in this gym very quickly. I know we sort of alluded to it earlier, but one of the big things that happened in this generation in terms of sort of an improper balance, maybe is the best way to describe this, because there are two Pokemon that are Grass Psychic, which is not necessarily a bad combo, and they're pretty easy to take down. Let's execute an Exeggutor. And then there's Tangela, which is the only flat grass Pokemon, but then every other grass Pokemon is also part poison. So therefore, all of my Dig and my Earthquake moves, things like that, that'll just rinse right through everyone else in this gym. Now, Tangela is the main problem. As you can see right here, it's a little dangerous. I don't have anything that is really all that effective against Tangela. So what I really need is I need some critical hits. If I can survive this Pokemon, then I should be able to take on the rest of the gym, or rather the gym leader's other two Pokemon with ease. Because at that point, that's the only two Pokemon left, so it's not even really a matter of taking on the rest of the gym, it's just the last two bastions that she has. But Tangela is actually a pretty solid start because I don't have anything to help me here. And the Mega Drain is a pretty devastating move because, as you can see, it just heals it back up. I was doing more than half health, but if it can heal, it's still, not going to work. I'm going to have to take 3 hits, and it can 2-hit me. So, therefore, using my usual standard rule, I have noticed that I have 3 resets, the first resets of the run, by the way, for Diglett. And I said, okay, let's take a step back. Let's go take on Team Rocket. Let's get through the entire Rocket headquarter area. That'll give us a little bit more experience. We'll level up a little bit. We'll get Earthquake, which is not also helpful against Tangela either, let's be clear. But it just means that I'm stronger in general. And so therefore, I'm already 2 levels up, and I can then go up against Giovanni's first team, which the first 2 Pokemon, it's going to be a lot like looking at the Brock fight. They are, very weak to that move, and it's a critical hit against Persian, which means that it was 3 digs and 3 kills. We are good to go. So now I can just dig my way out of here and immediately go back to Erica, because now that I'm at 41, just shy of 42, which I get to right there with defeating Tangela, this is exactly what I expected. Now I can just use Earthquake, and I can use Earthquake again, and boom, Erica is now done. Sometimes you just take a step away for a brief moment, you come back a couple levels later, it's usually fine. Usually. Don't look at Venonat. Now, we finally get to move on to Lavender Town. This is one of those classic moments of there's a rival fight, we're going to get in there, and luckily I do miss the first thing, but so does his first move. So therefore, the next couple of Pokemon I actually am pretty good against. And then Eevee, I don't really have anything super effective against it, but it's pretty weak. So at this point, Fearow was the hardest thing to take down, and it's mostly just because I have a move that's not accurate. But either way, we do get those attacks off, and therefore we get to move through all of the Pokemon Tower. We pay our respects, we save Mr. Fuji, and we move on to Fuchsia City. Fuchsia. Nope, never mind. I thought that was going to sound a little bit closer, but it's not. Now we're on to Koga. Koga should be pretty easy at this point with moves like Dig or Earthquake. It should be pretty simple to just kind of rinse through the poison typings here. Typically, I kind of complain about this being more of a bug gym than a poison gym, but this is one of those moments where, in all actuality, the type of moves that they have versus what I have comes out to work in my favor. It's a little close. Would have preferred that to be less close, but that's okay. We're still at 3 resets only, which I think is pretty good. However, the timing is not. We are a little slow here. I've been leveling up, and I think it's necessary because that Sand Slash, while it doesn't have Earthquake yet, the slash and the critical hit is pretty bad. It hits really hard. And so we don't have any health going up against this Vaporeon. So if I don't yep, there it is, man. See, that's the problem, is that by the time I get to Vaporeon, a Pokemon that I could not avoid, by the way, there was no way to beat that Eevee in the beginning. It's going to lose every time. And so therefore we're going to end up with the Vaporeon team. Now, the one thing that we're lucky with is that sometimes the rival, when he sends out his last Pokemon, sometimes he throws, right? It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough within this game, especially when he becomes the champion. Now, granted, he used Water Gun there. I actually think Aurora Beam would have killed me, but we get to move on, and I look away for a brief second without realizing I've leveled up, and in a very devastating manner, I accidentally evolve, and so I have to reset. This is a thing where I typically, once I'm done with a fight, I start holding down the Auto Fire B button just to make sure, and I managed to answer a text message during that moment. This is why I don't answer messages while I'm making content. It's why my phone is usually on Do Not Disturb mode, so I don't have moments like this. This sets me back a little bit, because granted, we only had to do one extra turn there, but I actually had to physically walk away for a second, and I leveled up and said, let's avoid that. I came back a couple minutes later, like about a minute and a half later, and then I had to redo that fight. But getting 3 more resets against the rival there is pretty bad, and the fact that one of those resets in particular is just because I was like, oh god, I wasn't paying attention. Yep, I've got to hit the reset button, which you really hate to see. It doesn't happen often in this game, but it does happen every now and then. I would say this is maybe my 4th time having a Pokemon accidentally evolve, just because I hit the wrong button or wasn't hitting the button. But I am hitting the A button and just cruising through this team. Giovanni is luckily pretty easy for a ground type Pokemon. All of his Pokemon, well, I mean, I guess Persian is not, weak against it, but if you've got someone with a decent attack, you can get through him pretty easily. And speaking of having a good attack and getting through something easily, here is Sabrina's gym. They don't have very good defense, so Earthquake is very effective. I have to be very careful not to accidentally say super effective, but it's very effective in getting through this gym. And so therefore we get to move on. And honestly, looking at it, really the only thing that I'm kind of disappointed in right now is the time. I feel like I should be going faster, because look at how some of these battles go, right? Sabrina is 1, 2, 3. Blaine is 1, 2, 1, 2, 4. Okay, whatever. Close enough. He uses a potion, which how does he know how to retroactively use it is always beyond me. He cheats a little bit, but it's not enough to keep him safe. Therefore, we get to move on to Giovanni. We get through the trainers in his gym very quickly. And so now it's just a pre-evolution little base Pokemon against all these big bad boys and big bad queen. Do it, lady. Anyway, we get through Nidoqueen, but unfortunately we've taken some damage. That is going to be kind of bad. Honestly, we really need to be able to get through this area completely, fully, full healthed up. That is the god honest truth. You kind of can't cut corners really in this fight with Diglett. I think with a Dugtrio, right, you could get through here pretty easily. But unfortunately, it's that low defense. This is where that can kick you in the butt. Earthquake will absolutely full wipe you. So you have to make sure that you're hitting and finishing him off. Luckily, he goes for Horn Drill, which is a throw and a half because it's very inaccurate. We get to use Dig. We miss another turn, and therefore we get the win against Giovanni. I think Dig was the right move there. Again, just because it means that he misses. He might go for a move that is a throw, Fury Swipes, or Fissure. Not Fissure, that was on Dugtrio. But Horn Drill, we were just talking about it. See, it's still up there. I've got a mind like a steel trap. Now, we get to move on to the last trap that our rival sets for us. Yeah, see, I can make it work. So we go to this last team, Rival 6. This is the last time that he is our rival before he becomes the champion. And this team sometimes can be very difficult. The big thing in this particular run, just like in Silphco, is going to be Vaporeon. Because you see, as a water type Pokemon, it's already effective enough against us, but then you get same type attack bonus, and also you just have the overall power behind the move of Hydro Pump. Yeah, the special that we have is just simply, it's not enough. We're not living through that anytime it hits. But unfortunately, in this particular last run, it turns out it's not just Vaporeon that can be an issue. It can actually also be Execute. We don't have anything that's really effective against him. He's not super effective against us either, but okay. Well, Sandslash, the critical hit does unfortunately matter. And see, he gets it again. That time it doesn't kill me though. But the range on that attack is still pretty drastic, pretty heavy. A minimum of 21 points, on either side of that critical hit. Pretty wild. Now, we're going to get to this last part of the fight, and this is the moment that he throws. I can't believe that he used a potion. I don't also really know how it didn't kill him. It did so much damage, and then it did so little. I'm not going to really complain or argue. In the end, he threw, maybe because he knew he didn't deserve it. So I get to move on to Indigo Plateau. 2 hours, 20 minutes. I'm not loving the time. I think that at this point, I can for sure calculate at least 15 minutes that I can cut. Maybe more. But it's becoming concerning, the fact that we're, maybe conservatively saying 2 hours, 5 minutes. And still there's the Elite Four to get through. That's bad. What's also bad is I straight up forgot to use my rare candies before I walked through that door. And I noticed it the second that I got hit with my first move. I went, oh, that hits pretty hard. That's bad. And obviously it was going to hit hard to begin with. It's the same argument that I made for Vaporeon earlier. But we needed to get up to level 77. However, even with that, you can still see that this is doing so much damage. And Clamp is an awful move to get stuck in because I can't get out of it. So what I do is I do something very rare here. I take the time to go back out into the world and I go get the 12th and final rare candy, something that I never do. I also fight all of the wild Voltorbs on my way. And before I leave, just for the sake of content, even if it adds 30 seconds, I fight the Zapdos to show that this little, thumb wrestler, this underground thumb wrestler, is capable of taking on one of the legendary birds. Now, level 79, now that we've gotten a good amount of extra levels in there, we've got effectively 13 levels out of this entire exchange, which is pretty good. That's better than we would normally see in this area. Sometimes I'm only getting 10, sometimes I'm only getting 11, sometimes I'm getting less if I have to use the rare candies early. So we're already at a pretty decent level. 79 is pretty high, and I think with a pre-evolution Pokemon, you need it. Luckily, we get very good RNG on that first encounter with Dugong. We do unfortunately get hit with Clamp. That's pretty bad. And so therefore, it doesn't matter what we do. They're going to use Surf every day of the week instead of going for Amnesia. Okay, even with these extra levels, we're still not quite hitting in the way that I think we would like to. And I probably could have sped up through this section, but this was a very interesting one because usually I keep dying in the same place over and over again in other kind of trouble areas. But in particular here, it was kind of all over the place. Sometimes it was Dugong, sometimes it was Cloyster, sometimes it was Slowbro. Weirdly, it was never Jinx or Lapras. Take that information the way that you want to, but that does show that those first three are kind of a pretty deadly combo. But if you can get just the right kind of thresholds, really, whether it's for misses or for people going to sleep or for people using a potion retroactively, so like that's a great move, honestly, on her part, at least for my sake. She does it again with Cloyster. So far we have gotten through to one of the harder people, which is Slowbro. without losing HP, and because I was so high up, he uses a move that doesn't matter. We then therefore get to take on Jinx with 1 hit. Blizzard takes us down to 12 health. That is unbelievably close. We felt it just sort of whiz right past us, holding on by a thread, by a pebble, I guess, in Diglett's case. And we get to move on to Bruno. Now, Bruno could be bad, kind of, maybe. Nah, not really. But luckily, it's not really going to matter because 2 of his Pokemon are definitely more super effective against them. And then we can just kind of slash our way through the other 3 Pokemon. And because he also uses an X attack, I honestly consider that a throw as well, but that's pretty on par for Bruno. And up next, we have Agatha. Agatha is frequently a wall for any Pokemon that is not super effective against poison types specifically. And so therefore, this is not going to be a struggle for us. Golbat is the only thing that can avoid the ground type moves, but Slash is more than enough to get us through him. And therefore, because we outspeed everything, Earthquake is going to be brutal for them. They are done. Therefore, Agatha is left in my dust. Thank you very much. Now, what you're going to see here is possibly the worst part of the entire run. This is, I would definitely say, the hardest thing that Diglett has to do, which is specifically Gyarados. Gyarados is kind of like the Vaporeon problem, kind of like the Lorelei problem, but on steroids. Now, granted, a couple times in there, I get lucky and I finally make it past that area, and I get to the Dragonite, but I usually am going there with very little health, and so it doesn't really matter what Dragonite does, because I can't seem to one-shot it. Because even though it's part flying, the Dragon typing makes the rock move not effective, or rather it just has neutral effectiveness. And so I can't one-shot that Pokemon at all. It also broke my screen here for a second. I did have to reset this in a moment. I do have some resets that have not been counted. It should be up to 22. There it goes. It has now been fixed. I get to continue on with this little embarrassing run of bad luck against Gyarados. Gyarados really kind of comes down to RNG and the range in which the attacks can hit for. Obviously, a critical hit will kill us every single time, but anything that is just a regular hit, it can leave us with anywhere between 9 and about 26, 28 health points. So what I need is a miss like that. That is a crucial part of a run, is you need to have a miss. And Hydro Pump should miss way more than it has been, but that's kind of, I feel like, par for the course as well. Usually it's a move that will miss for me, but not miss for them. And that time, we actually get the critical hit. That was the one thing I was talking about earlier. I could not seem to one-tap the Dragonite, and we get through with perfect health. Okay, sure, I'll take it. I'll take that any day of the week. And therefore, we are now finally on to the champion. However, we are here at 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 54 seconds. 25 resets, and that's not ideal. I don't think anyone really wants to see that much, but that's okay. We will take it. This is also a learning curve or a learning experience, perhaps, for the future of Diglett. I don't think Diglett can really do below 2 hours. I am going to go ahead and put that out there. If nothing else, the Gyarados is going to be the main problem. The Gyarados just requires the perfect amount of luck, and if you don't get that luck, it's a reset every time. Whether it's because the Gyarados gets you or something immediately after him will, because he's left you with basically nothing. And to some extent, that is the exact opposite problem of the Gyarados, which is very interesting for troubleshooting. The Gyarados is at the very beginning, and he hits you for so much and then leaves you with nothing for the back half of the fight. In this particular situation, the Vaporeon is the most devastating thing, but a lot of the times you're not able to get through the rest of the team without taking some sort of chip damage. Whether that means that you're getting there with half your health or a third of your health or less, it just means that Vaporeon has no reason to not kill you every time at that point. Now, here we go. We are now at 29 resets. This is probably some of the best luck that we're going to have against this particular champion, and maybe the best scenario. We are still a little bit above half health. If Hydro Pump hits, we're done for. If Aurora Beam hits, we should be done for, I would imagine. But he uses Mist, of all things. No idea why, but it's just like how I wish Hydro Pump would go, that it missed, and therefore it's kind of the same effect. And I therefore beat the game at 2 hours, 47 minutes, and 31 seconds with 29 resets at level 82. While this is not our best run, and while it's actually not even awfully that far off from some of the bad runs that we've seen from other Pokemon, this weirdly doesn't feel like a bad run. This feels like, for a Pokemon that needs a lot of help in the very beginning, and then, again, some very good luck at the end, it actually feels pretty decent. I think we can cut some time off it, but I don't see this being much better than 220. Either way, I'm very proud of Diglett. I think Diglett is just a great design, and he's just fun to play with, I'll be honest. That's kind of all it comes down to. And I hope that you found this video fun as well. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the content, please consider giving this a like, a share, and or a comment every time you interact with content from a small creator like me. It helps us out a lot. And that is all that I have to say about both that and Diglett, so I will see you all next week for another solo challenge in Pokemon Yellow.